The top stories tonight in Y News. Malacanang challenges Vice President Leni Robredo once again to come up with a solution to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The country's health department prepares a vaccine cold chain or storage for future COVID-19 vaccines. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization assures that the development of vaccine against COVID-19 is not a contest nor charity, but it is to the best interest of every country.
The COVAX facility will help to bring the pandemic under control, save lives, accelerate the economic recovery, and ensure that the race for vaccines is a collaboration, not a contest. This is not charity. It's in every country's best interest. We sink or we swim together.
The Department of Education wants to enhance child protection in the country in preparation for the distance learning setup in school year 2020-2021. As early as now, some motorists are complaining about the upcoming closure of several U-turn plots on EDSA, which begins on Monday.
Natural ho, apektado ho kami kasi paano ho yung pasahero namin kung sa kabilang ano lang, paano kami makapag-U-turn.
Thailand records its 59th COVID-related death after more than 100 days.
China is about to lose access to strategic space satellite tracking stations in Australia. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, September 22, 2020. I am Horilyn Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, Malacanang challenges Vice President Leni Robredo anew to come up with a solution to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the reaction of the palace when the Vice President said that hospitals, beds, funerals, and waiting for a COVID-19 vaccine are not enough responses. Last night, President Rodrigo Duterte slammed VP Robredo and the opposition for making the problems worse by criticizing the government on its COVID-19 response. According to the palace, the opposition should open their eyes and ears to see the efforts of the government against the pandemic, such as intensifying the testing and tracing, building of isolation and quarantine facilities, among others.
Kagaya nila na yung mga dilawan, baski anong sabihin mo, hindi mo gawin, masama ka. Gawin mo, masama ka pa rin. They're trying to delude people about, but they're trying to picture that there is a failure of government. No, we have done our best.
Hinahamon ko po si VP Leni. Kung meron siyang solusyon na walang baksin at at wala pa rin gamot, sabihin niya po. Dahil sigurado po, baka ngayon din maging presidente siya kung makahanap siya ng solusyon habang walang bakuna at walang gamot.
Meanwhile, the country's health department prepares vaccine cold chain or storage for future COVID-19 vaccines. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel details why.
Vaccines are perishable and must be stored at specific temperatures. Parallel to the volume of vaccine should be the proper storage of vaccines. This is why the DOH is preparing for the storage of future vaccines, or what they call as a vaccine cold chain, so that no vaccine will be wasted. Based on information from experts, a vaccine cold chain is a supply chain that can keep vaccines in tightly controlled temperatures from the moment they are made to the time that they are administered to a person. The cold chain requires three major pieces of infrastructure: planes, trucks, and cold storage warehouses. Each infrastructure is connected and utilized depending on the vaccine production locations and the points of demand. According to the DOH, the vaccine cold chain is essential because vaccines spoil if they get too warm or too cold.
Kasama po sa paghahanda natin yung ating logistics management, which includes warehousing and the distribution of these vaccines. And we are very much aware of these specific temperatures that has to go along with the storage of specific vaccines.
Experts say there is a required storage temperature for Moderna and Pfizer's potential vaccines. Moderna's vaccine requires a storage temperature of -4 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas Pfizer's vaccine candidate requires a storage temperature of -94 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperature mistakes will lead to wasted vaccines, meaning they can no longer be used on people.
So ito po ay kasama sa mga pag-uusap at meron na po tayong mga plano ukol dito para po tayo ay magkaroon ng adequate at saka appropriate na logistics management system when it comes to vaccines.
Meanwhile, the Department of Science and Technology identifies 13 hospitals where the potential vaccine solidarity trial will be conducted, 9 of which are from Metro Manila, like the Philippine General Hospital, Manila Doctors Hospital, San Lazaro Hospital, Lung Center of the Philippines, St. Luke's Medical Center in Quezon City, Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, Makati Medical Center, The Medical City, St. Luke's Medical Center in BGC. De La Salle Health Sciences Institute in Cavite, Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center, and Chonghua Hospital in Cebu City, and Southern Philippines Medical Center in Davao City. The vaccine solidarity trial is expected to start in the country by October. The DOH reminds the public to be extra cautious while there is no cure yet.
Hindi pa rin po dapat tumigil ang pagpapaigting natin ng ating response sa laban sa COVID-19. Ito po ay sa pamamagitan ng pagpapalawig ng pagpapatibay po ng ating capacity of our health system in our whole country.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The World Health Organization assures that the development of a vaccine against COVID-19 is not a contest nor charity, but it is to the best interest of every country. Although the COVAX facility is facing daunting challenges. Nina Armilio explains why.
We have no guarantee that any single vaccine now in development will work. This is what World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus stated when he addressed the September 21st WHO media briefing on COVID-19 update, with a focus on equitable access to future vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. Nonetheless, with ongoing trials, almost 200 vaccines for COVID-19 are currently in clinical and preclinical testing. The history of vaccine development tells us that some will fail and some will succeed, the WHO DG said.
We have no guarantee that any single vaccine now in development will work. The more candidates we test, the higher the chance we will have a safe and efficacious vaccine.
Dr. Ghebreyesus also highlighted the significance of the COVAX facility and its work, which aims to give participating countries access to the world's largest and most diverse portfolio of vaccine candidates. It also enables governments to ensure their populations can have early access to effective vaccines, he further said.
The COVAX facility will help to bring the pandemic under control, save lives, accelerate the economic recovery, and ensure that the race for vaccines is a collaboration, not a contest. This is not charity. It's in every country's best interest. We sink or we swim together.
Despite this assurance and the participation of countries in the COVAX facility, it is facing daunting challenges, especially on funding, according to the WHO chief.
For the ACT Accelerator to work as planned, it must be funded. So far, $3 billion has been invested. This has resulted in a very successful startup phase, but it's only a tenth of the remaining $35 billion needed for scale-up and impact. $15 billion is needed immediately to maintain momentum and stay on track for our ambitious timelines. Our challenge now is to take the tremendous promise of the ACT Accelerator and COVAX to scale.
The World Health Organization estimates suggest that once an effective vaccine has been distributed and international travel and trade is fully restored, the economic gains will far outweigh the $38 billion investment required for the ACT Accelerator. The Philippines is among the countries who have joined the Gavi COVAX facility. Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A group of medical doctors in the Philippines still does not recommend to ease community quarantine restrictions in the country despite seeing a downward trend in reported new cases. Joining us tonight is one of our senior correspondents, Joan Nano, to tell us why live. Yes, Joan.
Arlene, members of the Philippine College of Physicians discussed today in a virtual press conference they have observed a decrease in new COVID-19 cases in the country. Compared with the number last August, when additional COVID-19 cases reported daily average from 4,000 to 6,000, the number is down to just around 3,000 according to the Department of Health. The PCB attributes the downtrend to the 2-week modified enhanced community quarantine implemented last month. However, Harleen, the medical group, emphasizes that the public should not be complacent as the number of severe and critical cases is still on the rise. Based on the DOH tally, there were a total of 350 severe and 246 critical COVID-19 cases recorded last August 1. The number increased to 620 and 908 respectively last September 1. And as of yesterday, there were 742 severe cases and 1,728 critical cases, which is an increase. Let us hear the statement of Dr. Maricar Limpin, the Vice President of the Philippine College of Physicians.
Nandoon po tayo sa papunta sa flattening. So, ang ibig lang mong sabihin nito, hindi po tayo pwedeng mag-relax. At kung titignan mo natin sa ngayon, no, pataas ho ng pataas ang dami ng mga kaso na severe o kaya critical. Ang ibig sabihin nito, marami ho sa mga nakikita namin ngayon. Bagamat kumaunti po ang kaso kaysa compare doon sa mga nakaraang linggo, ay mas marami ho kaming nakikitang kaso na mas severe at kakailanganin talagang maipasok sila sa ICU.
Arlene, although the medical experts are seeing a slight downtrend in the number of new COVID-19 cases in the Philippines, they do not recommend to ease quarantine restrictions to avoid the resurgence of transmission. Here's Dr. Maricar Limpin once again.
Doon pa lang ho tayo, nag-uumpisa pa lang ho tayong bumaba. Maybe when we come to a point na talagang mababa na po ang mga kaso, then that's the time na medyo pwede na tayong mag-loosen up ng ating mga preventive measures na ito, yung quarantine measures na ito.
Harleen, this statement is contrary to the call of the concerned doctors and citizens of the Philippines, urging President Rodrigo Duterte to lift all the lockdowns and let the people go back to work. Harleen?
So, Joanne, what is the position of the Department of Health on this call of medical doctors urging the government to lift community quarantine restrictions in the country?
Yes, Herlene, the DOH has rejected this group's call and reiterated the importance of community quarantine restrictions in battling to further spread of the killer virus. Herlene?
All right, thank you so much. John Nano reporting live from Quezon City. Meanwhile, Vice President Leni Robredo believes that having hospitals, beds, and funeral parlors, and then to just wait for a vaccine are not enough to combat COVID-19. The country's second top official gave her response after President Rodrigo Duterte said in his public address not to believe in the Vice President. To counter the President's speech, VP Robredo presented 4 points that must be addressed and needs coordination. One is to suppress the pandemic through medical and non-medical interventions. VP Leni said spraying pesticides from an airplane is not a solution to the COVID-19 pandemic. Another point is to overcome humanitarian emergencies, including poverty, hunger, unemployment, and mental distress brought about by the pandemic. A restructuring of public and private finances must also be done in the wake of the pandemic. Lastly, rebuilding the economy in an inclusive, resilient, and sustainable way.
The Health Department warns the public against the use of ultraviolet or UV light in disinfecting items. Aiko Miguel is back to explain why.
Because the UV light has harmful effects to our body. Katulad ng sabi ko nung isang linggo, ito ay maaaring maka-apekto sa ating mga mata and can even dun po sa severe na exposure, maaaring masira yung cornea ng mata ng isang tao. Pangalawa, maaaring makasunog din ang balat, no? Pangatlo, meron din ho siyang effect sa respiratory system kung sa pangmatagalang paggamit.
The Health Department once again reminds the public of the harmful effects of ultraviolet lights. This after an incident in Baguio City. Based on the report, some media personnel had eye irritation after the demo of a UVC disinfection robot at the Baguio Convention Center. According to the DOH, UV lights are often used in hospitals and other health facilities.
Ang UV light po, wala pa ho tayong ganong sapat na ebidensya na talagang sinasabi directly na ito ay makakapagpatigil at makakapatay nitong SARS-CoV-2 virus. Ginagamit siya sa mga specific facilities kung saan guarded ang paggamit at ang gumagamit po ay mga bihasana at marunong gamitin.
According to the DOH, it will bring harm to a person if he does not know how to use UV light. This is why the DOH reminds the public not to patronize UV light gadgets sold online, which are believed to be effective in disinfecting objects. According to the DOH, there is no concrete evidence yet to prove that UV light can kill viruses. The DOH advises the public to directly wipe or disinfect items using approved disinfectants before bringing them indoors to prevent the entry of the virus to one's home. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 1,635 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 291,789. The most new cases were recorded in the National Capital Region. That's 583 additional cases, followed by Cavite with 102. The total active cases have increased to more than 56,000. Of those active cases, 86.4% are in mild condition, while 9.2% are asymptomatic. We have lost 50 more patients, but through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 450 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total number of recoveries nationwide to 230,643. Thanks be to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of over 31.3 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignties. That's after more than 272,000 new cases were reported across various countries. The fast-spreading disease has claimed more than 965,000 lives, while over 21.5 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. Thanks be to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte is impressed with Environment Secretary Roy Cimatu despite criticisms on the Manila Bay rehabilitation efforts. Meanwhile, the palace responds to the issue of coral damage allegedly due to dolomite extraction in Cebu. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte praised Environment Secretary Roy Cimatu for the Manila Bay Rehabilitation Project during his public address last night, which emanated from Davao City. The chief executive said he was impressed with Cimatu when the secretary accepted his dare to lead the project. The president added people can now enjoy parts of Manila Bay after the cleanup and beautification efforts. The Manila Bay Rehabilitation Project became controversial when the administration's critics, including Vice President Leni Robredo, questioned the use of crushed dolomite boulders as artificial white sand laid on the shoreline of Manila Bay. Critics also slammed the timing of the project as the Philippines is facing a health crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
And I think everybody was there when I said, then, kaya mong linisin to? And the answer was a very curtly given, said, kaya kung trabaho. And people now are really enjoying the reclaimed area with the white sand. Maski na papano, wala naman talaga tayo magawa. You do it, may masabi sila. You do not do it, may masabi sila ni.
Meanwhile, on reports that corals got destroyed in Alcoy, Cebu after extensive siltation caused by crushed dolomites spilling into the sea during its transfer to bulk carrier vessels, Presidential Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR, has to verify the reports. The main source of income of people in Alcoy is dolomite extraction, according to Malacanang.
Pag-aaralan po yan ng DNR at titignan po natin kung paano natin maibsan kung merong ng danyo sa nangyari dyan po sa Alcoy, Cebu. Pero ang kinakailangan po malaman ng taong bayan, sa mulat mula po, yan ang kabuhayan sa Alcoy, Cebu. Hindi po ito kauna-unang pagkakataon na sila yung nagbenta ng dolomite.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of Education wants to enhance child protection in the country in preparation for the distance learning setup in school year 2020-2021. Dante Amento tells us why.
The Department of Education is drafting supplemental policy that will enhance child protection in the country. This is especially now that the government will implement distance learning or online classes, considering that children are prone to abuse or exploitation. The supplemental policy is expected to be released within this month or early October. DepEd Undersecretary for Legal Affairs Josephine Maribuhok says the policy includes rules or restrictions on video recording during class sessions.
And some of the themes actually on recording, seeking consent, use of images, all of those will be in the supplemental policy. And we hope to come out with that policy in the very near future.
Article 15, Section 3 of the Philippine Constitution states that children have the right to special protection from all forms of neglect, abuse, cruelty, exploitation, and other conditions prejudicial to their development. Based on a survey conducted by DepEd, some 3.8 million parents across the country prefer to have their children engage in online learning. DepEd also expects students to engage in online classes due to the changes in the education setup in the country.
In fact, when we issued the supplemental policy, as a policy, it will become a rule. So unlike the guidelines that you mentioned, they are recommendations. So once those are adopted into policy, they become rules.
As of today, 22.36 million students have enrolled in public schools and 2.12 million students in private schools, according to DepEd. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Ombudsman Samuel Martirez expresses dismay over the lawmakers' decision on the Office of the Ombudsman's proposed 2021 budget. Meanwhile, the Ombudsman suspended the conduct of lifestyle check on government officials. One of our senior correspondents, Ray Pelayo, will tell us why.
The Office of the Ombudsman is asking for a budget increase for next year, but more than 1 billion pesos was cut from its proposed 2021 budget. The Office of the Ombudsman's proposed budget for next year amounts to 4.678 billion pesos. Now his office has approved budget only amounts to 3.36 billion pesos as presented before the House Committee on Appropriations. This is lower by 742 million pesos compared its budget this year. The requested additional budget would be used for creating a bureau for administrative cases and for hiring additional field investigators.
Malimit ng isang investigador ay bugbog sa trabaho. Hindi pa siya tapos doon sa isang assignment niya, mayroon na naman dumarating.
During today's hearing, the Ombudsman also gave lawmakers updates on the cases of the Marcoses. The official said that they are waiting for the Anti-Graft Court or Sandigan Bayan's decision on the cases.
Pagkakaalam ko, tapos na po ito eh. Dapat po matapos na talaga sa tagal ng panahon.
Ombudsman Martirez also suspended the conduct of lifestyle check on government officials because of his doubts about a provision of Republic Act 6713 or the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials. Martirez also clarifies that restricting access to the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth or SALN of government officials applies only to those in their custody. The official adds that SALN and lifestyle check is also being used by some to stain the image of government officials and employees.
Hindi nalalaman ng taong bayan, lalo na siguro ang mga nagre-report, mayroong provision sa 6713 na yung SALN gagamitin mo sa mabuting paraan, sa mabuting intensyon. You cannot use that SALN if it is against morals and public policy.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte cannot do anything if more lawmakers support House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, according to Malacanang. Our palace correspondent Rosalie Claus tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte hopes that lawmakers in the lower house will honor the term-sharing deal on the House speakership. Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano and Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco had agreed to it. Cayetano is supposed to serve as the Speaker of the House for 15 months, followed by Velasco for the next 21 months. The turnover is supposed to happen in October or November this year. However, the speakership row has become controversial due to issues of partisanship in the lower house as well as the alleged unrightful distribution of funds under the 4.5 trillion pesos national budget for next year. According to Malacanang, the president can do nothing about it if more lawmakers support the leadership of Cayetano.
So the president is hoping that the speaker and Congressman Velasco will honor their agreement, but ultimately the decision will be the decision of the individual congressmen. Ang sabi po niya, to quote talaga, is kung walang numero si Lord Alan, wala siyang magagawa.
The palace insists that though President Duterte forged the deal, it is still within the power of each lawmaker to elect their leader. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
As early as now, some motorists are complaining about the upcoming closure of several U-turn slots on EDSA, which begins on Monday. Let's find out why from Asher Kadapan Jr.
Metropolitan Manila Development Authority EDSA Traffic Czar Edison Bong Nebria says that the U-turn slot located on EDSA North Avenue near MRT Line 3 will be the first to be closed. The face-by-face closure of the U-turn slots along the EDSA busway will begin on Monday, September 28. The MMDA has yet to schedule the closure of the other U-turn slots on EDSA, but as early as now, some public utility vehicle drivers complain of the burden that both the drivers and their passengers will have to endure because of the closure of U-turn slots.
Natural ho, apektado ho kami kasi yung paano ho yung pasahero namin kung sa kabilang ano lang, paano kami makakapag-U-turn kung sa dulo pa, hindi kawawa naman ang pasahero. Lahat kami apektado sa ganyang ginagawa nila eh.
Kaya apektado kami dyan, yung gagawin na ipagsasara yung apektado kami dyan. Magiging ang biyahe namin, imbis na yung 1 oras lang kami iikot sa Sangandaan, aabutin ng 2 oras yan. Kung ang iikutan namin dun sa Balintawak ilalim.
According to MMDA, the U-turn slot closure aims to make way for the exclusive lane of EDSA busway between Monumento in Caloocan City and Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange or PITX. Motorists flying EDSA in Caloocan City and need to make a U-turn may use the Monumento Circle or Balintawak Cloverleaf U-turn depending on the destination. While those who used to make a U-turn between Balintawak and Quezon Avenue will need to turn in Balintawak Cloverleaf or in the slot under the Quezon Avenue flyover. The rest of the U-turn slots between Santolan area and Rojas Boulevard may turn to the opposite lane via the U-turn slot under Santolan flyover in Boni Serrano, Guadalupe, EDSA Ayala Avenue intersection, under Magallanes flyover, and the Mall of Asia Circle.
Sa lunes na yung sa MRT station, all the rest, titignan pa namin kung kailangan may isasarado yung bus lane. Kasi maapektuhan na naman yung U-turn once we close the busway with barricades. Eh ngayon, yan pa lang yung malalagyan namin ng mga barricades. So yan lang muna yung masasarado.
The MMDA advises motorists who will be affected by this measure to find and plan alternative routes before Monday comes. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. The low-pressure area, or LPA, will affect parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 3 p.m. today, the LPA was spotted 315 kilometers east of Borongan City, eastern Samar. The LPA and the southwest monsoon, or hanging habagat, will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Visayas and Palawan. Meanwhile, partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers will be experienced over Metro Manila and the rest of the country due to localized thunderstorms. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
The PNP National Headquarters was locked down today. Our police correspondent, Leah Ilagan, tells us why.
The PNP Highway Patrol Group, or HPG, conducted a surprise inspection in Camp Crame together with the Integrity Monitoring and Enforcement Group, or IMEC. This is part of the PNP's internal cleansing program and crackdown on carnapped and recovered vehicles being used by PNP personnel. The PNP HPG Director, Police Brigadier General Eliseo Cruz, said they inspected vehicles in Camp Crame's parking area as well as vehicles exiting the camp.
Siguraduhin na walang sino man sa kapulisan ang gumagamit ng mga recovered or alarmed or stolen vehicles. At ito yung isang paraan nga natin, sitahin sila habang nandito sa loob ng kampo.
The PNP HPG also checked the original receipt and certificate of registration, chassis, and engine number of the vehicles.
Masiguro natin na yung mga chassis number, engine number, o yung certificate of registration ay na maayos at wala doon sa mga listahan ng mga ninakaw na sasakyan na sa listahan ng Highway Patrol Group.
General Cruz added carnapped and recovered vehicles must be turned over immediately to the Highway Patrol Group.
Meron tayong SOP sa PNP, isang kautusan nito, na lahat ng mga recovered stolen, alarmed vehicles na nare-recover ng mga any police units ay dapat within 24 hours na naita-turn over sa Highway Patrol Group.
The camp lockdown is implemented on all PNP police camps nationwide. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A Senate panel has continued its investigation on the so-called Pastilla scheme, which involved the alleged bribery of Bureau of Immigration officers in NAIA terminals from VIP Chinese nationals, mostly POGO employees, entering the country. Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality Chair Risa Hontiveros says the big fish or the masterminds behind the illegal activity have yet to be caught.
Meron pong mga nagtatanong, babalikan pa ba natin ang Pastilla scam? Nasa gitna tayo ng pandemic. Pero hindi ba natin naisip na baka kaya nakapasok ang COVID-19 sa Pilipinas ay dahil na rin sa mga corrupt na immigration officers?
Former immigration officer turned witness Alison Chong also appeared in the hearing today and thanked the Department of Justice for ensuring his welfare under the Witness Protection Program. According to Chong, the bosses of the syndicate who run the scheme at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport have not been charged. Earlier this month, the National Bureau of Investigation filed charges against 19 immigration officers before the Office of the Ombudsman for their involvement in the scheme.
Sa immigration po kasi, itong term na boss, napaka parang broad. Halimbawa, sabi ng mga boss, i-check niya daw muna sa loob kasi nagmamanman ng NBI dyan. So lahat ang checking sa loob. So yun. Wala po dito yun. Wala dito yung mga boss.
Meanwhile, an official from the NBI also confirmed during the hearing the arrest of its own Legal Assistance Section Chief Joshua Paul Capiral in an entrapment operation on Monday night. Capiral has been allegedly accepting bribes from immigration officers who are tagged in the Pastilla scheme in exchange of their exclusion from the list that will be charged by the NBI. Meanwhile, former Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre and the Manila Times columnist Ramon Tulfo trade insults during the hearing. Aguirre denied the accusations of Tulfo that he is the protector of the Marineses who were the alleged masterminds of the Pastilla scheme. According to the former secretary, the malicious claims of Tulfo are just fueled by personal vendetta and dirty politics. The columnist also presented at the hearing photos and videos of helicopters claiming that they are being used by Aguirre to transport his kickback from the scheme to his hometown in Mulanay, Quezon, which the former secretary vehemently denied.
Alam mo, pag ikaw'y sumulat ng anuman o nag-akusa ng anuman nang wala kang ebidensya, malicious yan, Tulfo. Kung totoo yung sinasabi mo, hindi ba yan Mr. Tulfo na dapat ililihim mo para wala makakita mga tao? Pero kabaliktaran, ginagawa mo akong isang estupidong Department of Justice Secretary na ipagwawadwaran ko pa ang aking mga panunuhol sa akin.
Madam Chair, sinungaling yan. That's it. Kaya nga siguro inalis ni Pangulong Digong yan dahil bobo yan.
Hindi po ako inalis. I resigned.
No. You were
Gentlemen.
taken out. You had to. You were told to resign.
I was never told to resign.
Ba't ka inalis?
Sinabi nang hindi ako malis, I resigned.
Hontiveros adds the committee will consider the suggestions of Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon to recommend the reorganization of the Bureau from top to bottom, the suspension of immigration officers charged by the NBI, and the suspension of the visa upon arrival system, which allegedly enabled the illegal money-making scheme.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice, or DOJ, is making an assessment if further investigation on the Pastillas scheme involving some Bureau of Immigration personnel is necessary. DOJ Undersecretary Mark Perete says they are monitoring the Senate investigation regarding the said matter. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara has previously directed the National Bureau of Investigation to probe the matter. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Guevara refuses to answer queries regarding Immigration Officer Attorney John Paul Capiral, who had been nabbed for allegedly receiving bribes from those Pastillas gangs. Guevara adds he has to find out more about the incident before making a comment.
Meanwhile, Representative of Lone District of Marinduque, Lord Alan Velasco, issues a statement on the House Speakership term sharing. He says he has been silent during the duration of the gentleman's agreement in the defense and respect to House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano. He states that mum on issues means he just does not want to call attention to himself. Being party to the term sharing, one does not and should not seek to compete with the current House leader as a gentleman's agreement is in force. He further says that since becoming a lawmaker, he has worked quietly away from publicity to support the administration and help accomplish the agenda of the president to improve the lives of Filipinos. When both parties finally honor the agreement, he says he will show his fellow Solons the kind of leadership he espouses, and at the end of his term, his peers can then be the judge of his loyal service.
And for the news abroad, here's Kath Dumaraos reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand.
Thailand had not recorded any COVID-19 related deaths since June 2nd until last Friday, 18th of September, when a 54-year-old Thai national who came from Saudi Arabia died of the virus. According to Dr. Somsak Aksil, Director General of the Medical Science Department in Thailand, the man died due to complications such as pneumonia, kidney failure, and acidosis linked to the coronavirus disease. He came back to Thailand from Saudi Arabia last September 2nd and was put on a respirator when he went to Rajaviti Hospital. Dr. Somsak also mentioned that the man was asymptomatic, but his x-ray showed that his lungs have been damaged. 5 new imported coronavirus cases were added to the tally, raising the total to 3,511 confirmed COVID-19 cases. 3,343 have recovered from the infection, and 109 remain at hospitals here in Thailand. After months of granting visa amnesty, the Immigration Bureau of Thailand are now requiring tourists to have their visas renewed until the 26th of September. Our fellow correspondent in Thailand, Serbisyong Bayanihan, will explain why live. Therese?
Kath, jail term and fine are the punishments the tourists will have to face if they will not renew their visas, which will be valid starting September 27. Commissioner Sompong Chingduwang said all short-term visa holders must leave the country by September 26, but may need certification from their embassy if they cannot leave due to flight unavailability or the ongoing pandemic. Tourists who have overstayed for more than 90 days will not be allowed to re-enter Thailand for 1 year, while overstaying for more than 10 years will be banned for a lifetime. Application for visa extension may be submitted at each local immigration office so as to reduce overcrowding. Tourists may contact the Immigration Bureau hotline 1178 for inquiries regarding visa extension. Kath?
What are the guidelines that the Immigration Bureau will implement to ensure that the tourists will comply to the visa extension?
Tourists who will fail to accomplish the visa renewal will have to pay a daily fine, and the Immigration Bureau will track down these tourists at their addresses kept in the immigration's database. Kath?
All right, thank you, Serbisyong Bayanihan, reporting live from Thailand. China is about to lose access to strategic space satellite tracking stations in Australia. To tell us why live, here is one of our correspondents in Australia, Marvin Delfin, to tell us why live. Marvy?
Kath, that's right. China will lose access to two important and strategic space satellite tracking stations in Australia when its current contract expires, its Swedish owners said today. This is set to have an impact into Beijing's expanding space exploration and navigational capabilities in the Pacific region. The Swedish government-owned facility, Swedish Space Corporation or SSC, has come to this decision as concerns are flagged and tensions continue to mount about the communist country's intelligence gathering operations in the information and communication technology sectors. Just last week, it was reported that Australia's space and science sector was a subject of deep interest in a massive Chinese database leak. In a statement today, Annie News, an SSC spokesperson, said that it would not enter into any new contracts at the Australian site to support Chinese clients. She added, given the complexity of the Chinese market brought by the overall geopolitical situation, SSC has decided to focus mainly on other markets for the coming years. Ms. Bolaños did not detail exactly when these contracts were due to expire, but said they were long-term deals that were entered into quite a long time ago. On the other hand, the Australian government as well as the Chinese Foreign Ministry has not responded to questions or released comments regarding this matter. Kath?
Marvy, we know that Australia has a strong alliance with the United States, which includes working together on space and research programs, and it is clear to see that Canberra's diplomatic and trade ties with Beijing is now fracturing. What does this move mean for the current political chess of these three nations?
Kath, the expansion of China's space capabilities, which includes the growing sophistication of its Beidou navigation network, is one of the new frontiers of tension between the US and China, who are clashing on everything from technology and trade to Chinese activities in the much disputed South China Sea. Interestingly, since at least 2011, this contract allowed Beijing access to the satellite antenna at the ground station, which was located next to a satellite station used by the United States and its agencies, NASA. These stations are known to be equipped to coordinate satellites for civil military purposes, such as China's Beidou and the US-owned GPS. And so China wants to remove its dependence on GPS as part of its broader plans to widen its global influence. Australia looks to be a political battlefield between the US and China, and its resources seem to act as political weapons. Kath?
Thank you, Marvy Delfin, for that report live from Perth, Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Thailand and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Kath Dubaraos, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand.
And those are the reasons behind the news, September 22, 2020. I am Jorlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.